Controls A.5.13 and A.5.14 bring to life the idea of end-to-end information stewardship. They extend the discipline of classification into the operational world, ensuring that labels and transfer rules travel with information wherever it goes. The intent is that confidentiality, integrity, and availability are preserved not only at rest but also in motion, from creation to archival or disposal. These controls make ownership visible at every stage, showing who is responsible for data and how it is being handled. Together, they produce verifiable evidence that supports audits, contractual assurance, and regulatory reviews. In essence, labeling and transfer mechanisms serve as the connective tissue of an information management system, quietly ensuring that every movement and use of data remains within acceptable, controlled bounds. The scope of A.5.13 covers labeling across all forms of information, digital, physical, and even transient forms such as streaming data or collaborative edits. Labels are applied not just to structured records stored in databases, but also to unstructured content like presentations, chat transcripts, or scanned documents. Both regulatory and contractual markers, such as export-controlled or attorney-client privileged, are incorporated to meet external obligations. Labels must be readable by both humans and systems so that automation and awareness coexist. When labeling applies to digital systems, machine-readable metadata allows enforcement through security tools, while visible text markings remind users of sensitivity and accountability. The goal is that no piece of information ever loses its protective context, regardless of format or platform. Designing an effective labeling model requires simplicity and clear linkage to the classification scheme defined under A.5.12. Labels should use the same tier structure: public, internal, confidential, or restricted, so users recognize and apply them intuitively. A default label must be applied when content cannot be classified immediately, preventing gaps during creation. Inheritance rules dictate that derivative or composite files automatically adopt the highest classification of their sources, maintaining consistent protection as data evolves. Clear authority paths define who can upgrade or downgrade labels, ensuring that reclassification decisions are made consciously and recorded for audit. These design principles reduce confusion while ensuring that labels remain meaningful and traceable across business processes. Technical labeling mechanisms translate policy into enforceable action. File metadata fields embed classification tags directly within digital objects, while document headers, footers, and visible watermarks remind readers of sensitivity. Email systems support sensitivity tags or banners that propagate automatically into forwarded messages. Repository platforms such as SharePoint, cloud drives, or DLP, data loss prevention engines, can apply or validate labels based on content analysis or user actions. Integration through APIs allows pipelines and data platforms to attach or preserve labels as data flows between systems. This technical consistency ensures that labeling becomes an intrinsic part of how information moves through an enterprise, rather than an optional, manual exercise prone to oversight. Physical and hybrid media remain part of the labeling ecosystem and require equal attention. Printed documents should display banners or cover sheets that clearly indicate sensitivity, reducing the risk of mishandling in meetings or public spaces. Portable storage devices, USB drives, disks, or external hard drives must bear physical stickers that show classification level and return instructions. Meeting rooms or collaboration zones used for sensitive discussions should display signage reminding participants of confidentiality expectations. Even transport containers, such as boxes or envelopes carrying physical media, should be marked per policy to alert handlers of required precautions. These visible cues extend digital discipline into the physical realm, bridging the gap between cyber and tangible information flows. Labels interact dynamically with the information lifecycle. They are applied at the point of creation, reviewed during significant content changes, and updated when sensitivity increases or decreases. Declassification processes, whether for legal release or time-based downgrade, require owner review and an audit record. When data is archived, labels inform retention schedules and define who may access or restore the material. At destruction, wipe certificates or disposal records reference the final label to confirm that proper methods were used for the data's sensitivity. This life cycle alignment keeps labeling relevant over time and integrates it naturally into existing business and technical workflows rather than treating it as an isolated compliance ritual. Assurance and usability must coexist for labeling to succeed. Overly rigid systems frustrate users, leading to workarounds or abandonment. Instead, quick pick menus and document templates can streamline the labeling process, offering predefined selections that reflect real-world needs. Applications should provide in-context prompts or gentle nudges when likely mislabels are detected, such as a confidential document being attached to an external email. Contextual help and short examples near labeling controls build understanding at the moment of action. Just as important are error recovery paths that allow users to correct mislabels without data loss or administrative bottlenecks. Balancing enforcement with usability ensures adoption without resistance, embedding labeling into the normal rhythm of work. Even mature programs encounter pitfalls that undermine their labeling efforts. One common mistake is introducing too many categories, making the system complex and intimidating. When users face uncertainty, they often choose the easiest label, usually the least restrictive, or skip the process entirely. Labels that exist without enforcement mechanisms become decorative rather than protective, giving a false sense of security. Conflicting schemes across regional offices or business units erode consistency, leading to confusion during collaboration. Technical misconfigurations can also strip labels during file conversions or format changes, silently removing critical metadata. Avoiding these pitfalls requires governance that regularly reviews label effectiveness, harmonizes policies globally, and invests in automation that preserves labels through all transformations. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Pre-transfer checks serve as essential gatekeepers before any information crosses boundaries. The sender must verify recipient identity, ensuring that access is granted only to those with a legitimate need to know. This extends beyond individual verification to validating organizational domains, vendor identifiers, or endpoint authenticity. Compatibility checks confirm that the receiving environment maintains equivalent or higher protection levels in accordance with classification policy. Technical safeguards, encryption, tokenization, and redaction should be applied before release to limit exposure in case of mishandling. Documentation, such as consent statements, legal bases, or contractual clauses, establishes the lawful foundation for the transfer. Each step transforms what could be a simple send action into a documented, risk-aware transaction that upholds accountability and compliance simultaneously. Controls during transfer reinforce security and integrity while the data is in motion. Encrypted transport protocols, such as TLS or VPN tunnels, protect communications across untrusted networks. For highly sensitive transactions, message integrity can be verified through digital signatures or cryptographic hashes that confirm content authenticity. Temporary access mechanisms, like expiring links, password-protected archives, or one-time tokens, reduce residual risk by eliminating lingering exposure. Even for physical transfers, tamper-evident packaging and sealed containers create visible assurance that the contents were not accessed during transit. Each of these measures ensures that data remains intact and confidential from sender to receiver, providing traceable evidence of protection that can stand up to technical and legal scrutiny. Verification after transfer is often the most neglected phase, but remains critical to assurance. Delivery confirmations, such as read receipts, checksum validations, or signed acknowledgments, should be reviewed and retained. The sender reconciles the list of sent versus received items, identifying discrepancies quickly to trigger incident response if needed. Data entering the recipient's environment must be ingested into approved repositories, maintaining original labels and classification markers to preserve downstream controls. Transfer logs, including timestamps, participants, and applied protections, are archived per the organization's retention policy. These records demonstrate due diligence and allow auditors to reconstruct the flow of sensitive information during investigations or compliance reviews. Post-transfer validation thus closes the loop, converting activity into evidence. The human element remains both the strongest safeguard and the greatest risk in data transfer scenarios. Users often act under time pressure or convenience bias, making well-intentioned but risky choices. To mitigate this, organizations develop simple, scenario-based playbooks for common data sharing situations, sending to vendors, collaborating with regulators, or sharing drafts internally. Embedded checklists within communication tools prompt users to confirm classification, encryption, and intended recipients before finalizing a transfer. Even verbal and meeting disclosures benefit from guidance, reminding staff to avoid discussing sensitive details in uncontrolled environments. When uncertainty arises, a clearly defined escalation path allows employees to seek advice rather than guessing. These behavioral controls complement technology by shaping decision-making at the moment of risk. Cross-border and supplier-related transfers introduce another layer of complexity. International regulations may impose adequacy, localization, or residency requirements that restrict where data can travel or be stored. Supplier contracts must include specific clauses outlining transfer safeguards, liability provisions, and the handling of cross-jurisdictional data. Shared responsibility matrices clarify who is accountable for encryption, retention, and incident reporting across connected systems or APIs. Periodic assessments of partner practices through audits, questionnaires, or control attestations verify ongoing compliance. As data ecosystems become more interconnected, these supplier and regional considerations prevent exposure from cascading through external dependencies. The goal is to maintain consistent protection standards no matter where or through whom the data moves. Metrics and evidence collection underpin the credibility of information transfer controls. A transfer register should record details of significant exchanges, including sender, recipient, data classification, and security measures applied. Exception logs track deviations, such as urgent unencrypted transfers, and document compensating controls or after-the-fact approvals. Correlating incident data with transfer channels identifies weak points, such as misconfigured gateways or unapproved sharing tools. Periodic sampling of high-risk transfers, especially those involving regulated or personal data, provides assurance that controls operate effectively. These metrics feed directly into management reviews, transforming operational activity into measurable performance indicators that highlight trends, reinforce accountability, and drive continuous improvement. A.5.13 and A.5.14 work best when integrated as a single, continuous process. Labels applied under A.5.13 act as automatic triggers for transfer controls. Systems can detect a file's classification and enforce encryption, approval workflows, or restricted channels without user intervention. Likewise, transfer logs and DLP alerts feed intelligence back into the labeling system, refining accuracy by revealing patterns of misclassification or inappropriate sharing. Over time, this feedback loop enhances precision, reducing both overprotection that stifles collaboration and underprotection that creates risk. Lessons from real incidents inform awareness materials and policy updates, ensuring that the framework evolves alongside user behavior and technological change. Integration turns these two controls from parallel processes into a living, adaptive system that strengthens the organization's overall information governance. When labeling and transfer disciplines operate in concert, the result is a seamless ecosystem of controlled movement and accountability. A5.13 ensures that information carries its protective identity everywhere it goes, while A5.14 ensures it travels safely, lawfully, and verifiably. Every movement becomes traceable, every label meaningful, and every exchange governed by defined rules. This alignment of labels, technical controls, and evidence reduces operational friction while lowering risk exposure. Together, these controls bridge the gap between information creation and distribution, creating a resilient framework that upholds confidentiality and trust across systems and borders. As the organization matures, this foundation supports the next essential layer, securing access and identity management, which forms the core focus of A5.15 and A5.16.